Welcome to the Own Your Life podcast, where our goal is to help bring hope, healing, and peace by sharing our experiences and inspiring you to own your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own Your Life podcast. Today is episode 30. So crazy to believe that we're already on our 30th episode, and we're going to be talking all about healing. So this goes along with hope, healing, and peace, which is part of our mission of what we want to bring to you by listening to our podcast and inspiring you to own your life. And if you didn't catch last week's episode, we talked all about hope, which I feel like is relevant all the time, but especially right now. Definitely go back and listen to that podcast if you didn't already. And today we're going to get into healing. And so when we talk about healing, we don't just mean physically as if you have a wound or something like that. We're talking about mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical as well. But I feel like we've experienced a lot of healing in all of those areas of our life. And we're going to talk about that today. So I'll let Matt kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, with healing, we've ventured into so many different avenues of healing throughout a lot of different journeys. And there's been a lot of wins, a lot of losses in the healing journey, especially with the emotional side of healing. Emotional healing is very, very difficult. You know, you have to really dig deep into a lot of different avenues and really figure out, what your triggers are of, what makes you the way that you are. What is the trigger that makes you so angry or so upset, or, how you want to interact with other people? What's the trigger of interacting with other people? Because I think that that's a part of healing as well, because we weren't made to live in isolation. We were made to have communication and to have community with people. And I think that sometimes because of our emotional wounds, we go into isolation by choice. And I think that that's been hurtful for a lot of people, especially in these seasons that we've been walking through right now. And just kind of knowing our natural tendencies and our natural bends is going to help you identify what your triggers are for your emotional healing that needs to happen. And I think that sometimes as well within the healing journey is, I think that conflict usually happens when there's bad communication. Generally with communication, the general kind of natural bend to that as well is being open enough to have the healing, to have the communication, because I think sometimes we've closed ourselves off from the healing of the communication. I know that for me, I'm naturally not apt to have that conversation. Maybe when it needs to happen, I'm more apt to have it later. And sometimes later doesn't provide as much healing as it does in the immediate future. Whether, let's say I have a disagreement or whatever, where I've needed to have that conversation, maybe an hour or two after whatever conflict happened, and I'm tending to do it more in a 24-hour period or 36-hour period or 48-hour period versus having it a couple hours after, where maybe the situation has calmed down enough to where I can have a better communication, a better understanding of why we had the conflict of whatever we had, and then being able to address it and have healing in that area.
Yeah, that's really good. You said that. That's also known as stuffing your emotions and things away. And I've definitely done that too. And when you were talking, it triggered, I was thinking about that it's okay to ask for help, because I've gone into isolation where I haven't wanted to communicate at all with anybody because I've tried to maybe figure something out on my own, or thought that nobody could help me, so there's no point in asking. Or maybe it was a pride thing, and I thought that, asking for help was a sign of weakness, when it was actually something that would have had me healing faster if I just asked for help in the first place. And I know that's something that I've worked on a lot and I'm still working on, because the thing about healing is it is an ongoing process. So just know that if you feel like you're making progress in one area and you've healed one area, that it's not over, it keeps going. And I would argue to say that you need to keep the process going so that you don't revert back to whatever your previous state was before that. I think it's important, that like exercise, it's something you just keep doing. So with the healing process, I feel like that's something that you need to keep doing with every area in your life. And I feel like, it might be more or less at certain parts, just depending on what you're going through, but that it's something that you're always doing because we always want to be healing and getting better.
Yeah, I think that there's also a lot more into the healing process that maybe we just don't think about enough to where we can really have some major breakthroughs in our own life that because I think that whenever we were talking to even Noble back and Kathy back a few episodes ago where he was talking about self-sabotaging, and self-sabotaging is a part of the healing process. I mean, sometimes we are not moving forward because we keep self-sabotaging, and it is a part of a healing process to understand that trigger and to understand how to really navigate that to really get better. And I think sometimes the same emotion that breaks your heart is the same one that heals it sometimes. And what I mean by that is that, you could have a tragedy or you could have, just a injury in your life that may end up triggering a lot of emotional hurt and a lot of stuff that just happens. But that same injury or that same emotional hurt can bring you closer to somebody else and have a mended relationship, and you can get healing in a moment of grief. And I think that sometimes people wall themselves off in that isolation period, and they never get that healing that they really needed in that immediate moment. And I know that I've been guilty of this multiple times in my life, and I think that you need to understand that every single time that there is an emotional hurt or something that goes on in your life, there is an opportunity for healing within that moment. And don't run away from those healing moments, because those are the moments that allow you to grow and allow you not to self-sabotage longer. And I think that that's been the biggest thing for me, is that I've actually self-sabotage instead of healing myself in multiple areas of my life for long periods of my life. And that's why I'm not farther than where I think I should be. I know that everybody thinks they should be farther down the road, and I know that everybody thinks they should be winning at a different level. But at the same time, I know for a fact, after this emotional journey and the healing that I have received, that I know that I was self-sabotaging to keep myself from moving forward.
That's awesome. I totally have done the same thing. And I feel like sometimes that our comfort zone is actually pain. And it's so much more comfortable for us to revert back to something painful, which sounds totally wrong, but that's more comfortable to do that than to move forward in a healing process and be pain-free. But that might be something you've never experienced before. So it's not in your comfort zone, and it's easier just to kind of hide away and avoid it. And I think that we also need to work against being complacent and taking things for granted, because I think that can also keep us from receiving more healing in our lives, whatever area that you're trying to get more healing in. I think that's also important to keep in mind, and also to keep in mind that healing is hard. It's hard work, especially to do like a bunch of emotional or mental trauma that you've been through, even spiritual and sometimes physical, depending on what happened. That it's all hard, but it's so worth it, because you're going to come out on the other side of that so much stronger for having gone through that experience.
One more time, that quote, one more time before you go on.
Which one?
The pain.
So sometimes our comfort zone is pain.
So good, because
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome. And I think that sometimes you need to hear that. We are so used to having pain, grief, agony, even sometimes. And we're so used to that when things go well, sometimes it's more painful for us than to continue down the other road. Because I think that a lot of people, especially how you look at life and how you've kind of attacked life in certain areas, is through pain. And you don't feel like you're winning unless there's pain. And I know that for me, in multiple times in my life where I've been running really hard towards a goal, I'm like, the pain will end when I win. And that's a great way to attack certain things. But at the end of the time, you're going to be so burnt out that you won't be able to enjoy the victory anyway. So it really doesn't matter, because there is no real end in sight. There is just the journey, and you have to enjoy the journey at some point. This is one thing that kind of coincides with that as well, is that life becomes easier when you learn to accept an apology you're never going to get. And that's an apology from yourself. It's an apology from your family. It's an apology from whoever hurt you, whatever the situation was. It's okay not to get the apology. It's okay you can move on. You don't need the apology to move on. And I think a lot of people are waiting on the sidelines, waiting for that healing, waiting for that to happen. And it's just not going to happen. A lot of people don't even know they hurt you. And you're not going to have the conversation with them about hurting you. And unless you're open and honest about it to get the healing. And even if you have the conversation, they still may not apologize to you. And I think that that's an awakening for a lot of people. And I think it's a hurtfelt awakening, obviously. But at the same time, you have to be okay with not getting the apology.
I love that you said all of that. Not that that's the ideal situation, but that is going to happen a lot. That people may not apologize for the ways they hurt you, especially like Matt said, they might not even know that they hurt you. And it could be somebody that's already passed away. So there's no way you could even have that conversation if you wanted to. This all goes back to what we've said a lot of times on this podcast, is that we cannot control other people. You cannot force somebody else to apologize to you, to treat you better, to think differently of you. You can't do any of that as much as we want to, because we want to so bad. We want people to see things our way. If that was the case, there'd be a lot of conflict avoided, but that's not how it works. So I feel like we need to be okay with the fact that we can't control other people. They're going to do what they're going to do and say what they're going to say and, think the way they think. But we can only control ourselves and our actions and our thoughts and behaviors. And that goes back to, what Matt said, that sometimes you're not going to get that apology and you have to be at peace with that. So that's just another area that you need to be okay with healing, in that it might not end the way you want it to, but you can change your mindset around it.
I think that's a great analogy for that, in the sense of just letting you be able to be okay with it all and changing the mindset around it, and not really accepting the fact that, there's so much more with the healing that you can get from it, and accepting that over accepting the fact that they need to apologize to me. And it's okay. And I've been there. I think I've been waiting on one apology for 10 years, and I finally let that go. And, I think that was one thing that, we all have these hurts. We all have these things that are happening in our lives and happening to us. And I think that we've said it multiple times on here, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And maybe that hurt was to help you get over something else. Maybe that hurt was to help you move on, and you should be thanking them instead of waiting for that apology. And I think it's, not forgetting that heals, it's remembering. And I think that sometimes we want to forget all the bad stuff that's happened along the way, but that's made you who you are. That's given you grit. That's given you the things that you needed to win in life and win in business, win in every area of your life. And sometimes that hurt has helped you through a tough time. And I know that for me, I used to use it as fuel. And every time I got hurt, I kind of use it as more of a fuel instead of learning how to heal. And I think there's a huge difference in that, because you can't continue to run on the pain and the hurt every single day. You can win, yes, temporary wins, but the awake that comes with that, of the relationships that will be ruined and the family time that will be lost because you're chasing something that may be a great win for you at the moment, but it's going to be a great loss down the line.
It's so interesting that you just said that, because I wrote down before you did that I've been motivated by pain in the past. And I believe we said this in our self-talk episode way back. It was one of the earlier ones. And I used to be so mean to myself with my self-talk, whether I was at the gym or maybe I messed up at something or whatever, that I was motivated by pain. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I realized how dangerous and detrimental that was, because it just kept breaking down my self-esteem, my confidence, to where it was almost, completely gone. So I feel like, it's important to really take an inside look at yourself. What are you motivated by? What are you scared of? What are you blocking? What are you blocking out? What are you stuffing? What are you avoiding? Because I feel like a lot of those things can bring us so much healing if we can identify them. That's the first step, is just to identify it. I feel like a lot of people can't even name, what's going on. But if you take the time and you figure that out, and you can at least identify the issue, then you can move forward from that, whether you need to have a conversation with somebody or go to therapy, maybe write in a journal, something like that, which leads to, changing your mindset, because gratitude and thankfulness, can totally change your mindset in a positive way. And I feel like Matt and I have gotten a lot of healing from even just doing, our journals every morning, that we write down 5 things that we're grateful for. And then we write down goals after that. Just that small practice every single day. It takes less than 5 minutes to do, can change your mindset for the whole day and can bring you healing in the long term.
Yeah, and I think that it does really bring you healing every day. There are so many things that you can do to really maximize your gratefulness every day and to get healing every day, because it's really a journey in the healing process. And to understand where you're really at in your healing process is going to be a game changer for you. It's a game changer every single day to know where you're at in your healing process. You can kind of judge where you're kind of at in your healing process by how you grieve and how you communicate with others. And I hate that you have to end up grieving at some point, to understand where you're at with your emotional and healing process and for yourself. But at the same time, you kind of know where you're at whenever you have some type of loss within that and the communication that goes along with it. Because if you can communicate about it and you're not waiting for the apology, then you know that you've kind of moved up the ladder and you're able to heal faster when things do happen.
Yeah, that's awesome, babe. And I want to kind of get into a little bit of physical healing and mental healing. I'm going to read this passage here. It's about a page or so, but it's not too long. From As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. I believe this was written in like 1903. And the cool thing is that it's still extremely relevant right now. So he says, effect of thought on health and the body. The body is a servant of the mind. It obeys the operations of the mind, whether they be deliberately chosen or automatically expressed. At the bidding of unlawful thoughts, the body sinks rapidly into disease and decay. At the command of glad and beautiful thoughts, it becomes clothed with youthfulness and beauty. Disease and health, like circumstances, are rooted in thought. Sickly thoughts will express themselves through a sickly body. Thoughts of fear have been known to kill a person as speedily as a bullet, and they are continually killing thousands of people just as surely, though less rapidly. The people who live in fear of disease are the people who get it. Anxiety quickly demoralizes the whole body, and it lays open to the entrance of disease, while impure thoughts, even if not physically indulged, will soon shatter the nervous system. Strong, pure, and happy thoughts build up the body in vigor and grace. The body is a delicate and plastic instrument which responds readily to the thoughts by which it is impressed, and habit of thought will produce their own effects, good or bad, upon it. People will continue to have impure and poisoned blood so long as they propagate unclean thoughts. Out of a clean heart comes a clean life and a clean body. Out of a defiled mind proceeds a defiled life and a corrupt body. Thought is the font of action, life, and manifestation. Make the fountain pure, and all will be pure. Change of diet will not help us if we will not change our thoughts. When thoughts are made pure, impure food is no longer desired. So the reason why I read that, and I feel like a lot of it even has to do with just this past year and the whole COVID epidemic and all of that, that I feel like maybe some of the people that died thought themselves to death. And I truly believe that, because I know how powerful the mind is, and that fear can totally overtake us. And one thing, with all of that, with the thinking and the healing physically, is Matt and I went to Restoring the Foundations, which is a spiritual healing, and it's Christian. And we did this in 2017, 2018. I went 2017, and then he went 2018. And then we did a little bit together as a couple. But anyways, just to be brief with it, I had Lyme's disease, Epstein-Barr virus, hypothyroidism, pyroluria, and I'm sure other things. But those are all autoimmune diseases. And I went through RTF October or September of 2017 and went through a bunch of emotional healing of past traumas in my life that I was ignoring. I completely stuffed away for years and years and years. And I went through all of those. Not perfect, because I feel like we can't find every single, memory or thing we need to heal at once. But from what I did just in that week that I was there, by the time that I came back, because I had traveled away to do it, but the time I came back home and went back to my doctor, probably maybe three or 4 weeks later, to get more blood tests done and to see everything, my Lyme's disease was gone, my Epstein-Barr virus was gone, pyroluria was gone, and my hypothyroidism totally dropped. I have a little bit, but not even close to what it was before. And I remember when I got those results that I just sat in the car and was just crying, because I couldn't believe how much that actually healed my body, and how much of a change that I felt. I had so many other symptoms. I actually felt kind of like a zombie for a while. I know Matt can attest to that. Just a lot of hard years in the beginning of our relationship when I didn't know, I didn't know it was wrong. And in 2016, it really got really bad. And just that healing was very intense. It was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done to heal myself, but it was so worth it. To do all that work was amazing. And I just want to encourage you, if you're in a bad place right now, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally, that there is hope for you, and there is healing that God has for you. And I just feel like doing the work, even if it's one tiny little thing each day, that it's going to make a huge difference in the long run. And you're going to experience so much healing from that, even if it's one tiny thing every day. We hope this was helpful for you all. Please share this message, subscribe, rate, and review us. And until next time, own your life, because your life is your responsibility. Thank you all for listening. If this added value to you, please click subscribe and rate and review us. You can also find us at Own Your Life Co. on Instagram and Facebook, and ownyourlifeco.com. And as always, own your life, because your life is your responsibility.